everybody, and welcome back to Beyond the Veil Tarot and Astrology. My name is Candace Marie. Thank you for joining me on this awesome Saturday night, the Saturday night crew. This is a part of my weekly live readings that I do on the channel, where we alternate week to week and we look at either tarot or astrology, and we do live readings. So this week we're going to be doing astrology readings. Those of you guys who are new to my channel, don't forget to hit the bell button below and to subscribe. Thanks for joining me. So basically, yeah, we're going to do live readings. We're going to take a look at questions that you guys have either about transits or natal aspects that you have in your natal chart. In order for me to do that, I need to have the exact date, time, and location of where you were born. So if you're new, just a heads up. Sometimes we pop up a QR code. You might see that at some point throughout the readings this evening. So that way it makes it easy for you to get the PayPal link. You can scan that and you can send a donation for your question. We charge $40 for any question in relation to astrology, whether that's a particular topic or a transit that you're going through. $65 for questions that you have about relationship compatibility. And sometimes we'll do other things. You'll see people pop in and say, hey, can you look at my lunar return? Can you look at this particular transit? Certainly solar returns are a little bit more challenging. Lunar returns I don't mind looking at, but we will usually keep it to maybe about 5 minutes-ish, 10 minutes per question. Obviously, with my channel, I have subscriptions. If you're not aware, subscriptions help this channel continue to keep going. So if you like my videos that I'm doing throughout the week, my astro weather or extra videos that I'm doing on particular transits, please do consider subscribing and supporting the channel. You can do that by looking at all of the different level subscriptions we have. Level 1 is just being able to support the channel and saying thank you. Level 2, you're gonna get a shout out. And level 3, you get one reading once a month during my lives that I have a tendency to do on Fridays or Saturdays. So definitely check that out if it's something that you're interested in. We always start with the level 3 subscribers first, so that way we can get their questions out of the way. So I've got definitely a whole list of people here who are level 2 and 3. So thank you guys for your support. People like Catherine Murray, Hera, Nancy, Sam Norton, Jen Rich, Phoenix, Jessica Martinez, Angeli, Emma, and Susan Wexler. You guys are superstars. Thank you so much. It does look like we have spoken with Paula and Angeli for their monthlies. However, I know Angeli did pay for an extra question, so we're gonna actually end up taking her first to get some questions she has about a relationship chart. So if you do send a payment via PayPal and your name is different than on YouTube, please let me know, because sometimes I just see a whole list of people and I don't know who is who. I know that we also have somebody who came in, Sang came in. So if you were not able to put a memo, which is your question and your date of birth information, go ahead and plug that into the chat. And when it is time for me to take a look at your chart, I will take a look. So for whatever reason, there's some weird stuff going on with the chat box. So for Sang, can you please send me your information again, whether that's your birth information or your question. Oh wait, you know what? I take it back. I see it right here. So it did come up. So yeah, you'll be second in the queue, and the QR code is up. Hi, I'm a Dodger fan. I'm a Dodger fan too. Hey, Angeli, it's nice to see you. Those of you guys who are just popping in, we're just getting ready to get into these questions. We got a couple people in the queue, and I'm going to start with Angeli. I just have a quick question for you, because I do have your information and I want to confirm just to make sure it's right. Hey, Spacebug, nice to see you. You're very welcome. So Angeli, I've got you here March 17th, 1987 at 9:53 a.m. and that's in Miami, Florida. And you're asking questions about a guy that you've asked questions about before, but we haven't really looked at his chart. And the information you gave me was April 22nd, 1989 at 8:08 p.m. And that was in Sault Ste. Marie, Michigan. And you said that you had questions either about synastry or composite. So those are two different things. Just let me know which one you would prefer. Would you rather me look at the composite chart, or would you rather me talk about your synastry? Just let me know. Right now, what I have up on here is your synastry. So essentially that's laying his chart over yours. So if you want to let me know which one you would like me to take a look at. For those of you guys who are new to this lingo, synastry is going to be more looking at the two charts and how they're communicating with each other. So we're going to look for trines, conjunctions, things like that, just to see how they relate to one another. The composite chart is going to be more the actual midpoint relationship chart. Okay, cool. So she says composite. So let's go ahead and pull the composite chart. Somebody says, that's my birthday. All right, so Angeli, this is the composite chart that you have with this mystery man. So we'll talk a little bit about some of the most important aspects in this chart, and I might pepper in some thoughts in regards to transits. One thing that I will say that's interesting is that this is a, first of all, it's a Leo rising, Aries sun, and the moon in this chart is in Scorpio. Lots of Mars energy with this chart, lots of Sun, Mars stuff. So Leo rising, obviously there's going to be an emphasis on the sun. So we read this kind of similar to a natal chart. The sun is exalted in Aries, so it does very well there. It's also pretty happy in the 9th house because that's traditionally a fire house. Having the sun coming into an exact trine with both the vertex and the ascendant is particularly interesting to me because the vertex is going to be a calculated point that deals with almost like energy points opening up in the chart. So having the vertex conjunct the ascendant can indicate that it was like a meeting that was meant to happen, or it was like fated, you know? Sun trine the ascendant is warm, friendly, it's compassionate, it's physical, it's communicative, and it's also conjunct Mercury. So I feel like there's this sense of busyness, whether it's like communication, talking to each other, a lot of going back and forth, sharing information. But it also can very much relate to traveling or traveling back and forth between a place, whether that's between you guys' homes or this is back and forth over state lines, having to get on airplanes, things like that. The dispositor of your guys' sun and your Mercury is Mars. That is situated in the 10th house. So I'm wondering, like, where does this person live? Is there some kind of distance, or is there some kind of like cultural difference maybe? That's the other way that I can kind of interpret that. Do you have any insights into that for me? Now, the reason why I say this is like very Mars heavy is like of the big three in this chart, you have the sun and you have the moon ruled by Mars. Some would argue that the moon is ruled by Pluto. I see it either which way. And probably one of my most favorite angles is the inconjunct, or we call the quincunx, between Aries and Scorpio. So I have that natally. I'm a Scorpio sun and I have an Aries moon. It's like my life every day is like who I'm gonna rage war with. I would have to say that whenever you have the sun and the moon in a inconjunct or a quincunx, it's almost like looking at something and going, something's not adding up. Like, what's the problem? What's the issue here? Why are we not merging? Why are we not coming together? So the fact that the sun and the moon are not in the most harmonious aspects tells me that there's either distance issues or issues relating because you guys come from two very different upbringings, two very different places, two very different cultures. Yeah, long distance and cultural differences. There you go. They do want to be reconciled. And so that's the positive thing that I would say to you. I also noticed that this inconjunct is also part of a yod, so stay with me. But if you look at Aries sextiling Gemini, so you've got like Sun and Mercury sextiling Mars, the yod would be the focal point, which would be Scorpio, which is the IC. So that's your moon Pluto. So that tells me both y'all have some really intense issues relating to where you come from, what family means, what it means to merge and to be intimate or to share, whether that's your feelings, your home, your history, your past. And both of you guys are like learning that it doesn't matter where you come from or the kind of family you have or your culture or even like your place of origin. You guys have similar patterns where there is some kind of like emotional trauma or some family trauma that you guys have in common, right? And it may manifest as emotional outbursts, getting really sensitive, weird about your personal space, weird about who comes to visit whose house your guys is in, stuff like that. So that's just kind of one of the bigger things that I would say, but definitely a lot of talking about it, right? There's a lot of working this out through sharing information with each other. Now, you've also got a pretty complex square, and even though it doesn't involve planets on all 4 angles, I consider it to be important. Look at Jupiter at the top part of your chart in Taurus. Look at how it's in opposition to your moon and your Pluto. So big emotions, big feelings. Like, it is quite a challenge, like going back and forth. Where does this person live? I mean, are you having to catch flights to go and see this person? Is that a theme here? But it's a part of a really complex fixed square that you have with your ascendant and your descendant, which is essentially saying, like, both parties got to get over their past history shit. Both parties have to be willing to be vulnerable and open, and there needs to be full transparency. Both parties also really need to realize that in order for this relationship to facilitate and really be something, there needs to be a common ground when it comes to how you guys express how you feel for each other, what your triggers are, and somebody's probably going to have to move. So that's like a big theme that's come up all year, because you've had Saturn in your 7th house straddling the line, squaring your guys' moon Pluto and also your MC. And both of you guys are like, I'm not moving, or I'm afraid to move, or my job is here, I can't move, or I've put too much money into my apartment, that kind of stuff. Very Scorpio Taurus stuff. It's always gonna come down to what they've spent. I feel, oh, Canada, okay, cool. I feel personally that there's a breakthrough coming with, you know, Saturn moving deeper into your guys' composite 7th house. I feel there's a breakthrough coming also because Jupiter is coming into Pisces, and it's going to hit your guys' North Node next year, ruled by Neptune, and the conversation more becomes, what are we? Could this be something? Do we want the same things? Venus is relating. And I would say the only hesitation I have is that Neptune is creeping up on your guys' Venus. And it can activate the composite 3rd house. It can also activate the 10th house, where it's like, you know, somebody takes a job somewhere else, somebody has a situation where they're talking to another person. You want to be a little iffy and just aware of what's going on when transits conjunct your guys' North Node and your Venus next year, because it can be very romantic, very sexual, very dreamy, but I want to make sure that it's going to have a sense of reality, right? Now, here's the other cool thing, is that Jupiter's then going to leave Pisces briefly and touch into Aries. It'll retrograde back, I think, like mid next year, and then finally in 2023, it'll fully go into Aries, and it'll conjunct your guys' Sun and Mercury, which may activate a sense of like, maybe you go back and forth and see each other briefly this year, but to me it seems like more like 2022, the end of 2022 going into 2023, when Jupiter fully moves into Aries. I think that that can be more flying back and forth to see each other, talking whether or not there's more of a realistic, serious relationship going on. We look at Saturn then going into Pisces. So it's like, yeah, you could, but I mean, I don't want to send you on a wild goose chase and tell you spend a whole year flying back and forth between, you know, where you live in Canada trying to make a relationship work, only to get to 2023 and he goes, yeah, actually, I'm not looking for the same thing. So what I would advise you to do is to like really hash it out and talk about things. I love Venus on the North Node, but it is in the 8th house, and it can be very fantasy based, or it's like a relationship through a phone, or a lot of sending videos or pictures to each other. So I kind of feel like telling you, like, if you're going to do it, make it real. There needs to be a bigger vision for the future. And I say that especially because the Sun and Mercury in the 9th. So you want to be talking about, okay, but where are we going to be in 6 months? Or what are you really looking for? Or what are we really doing? Not just habitually getting into the pattern of just having a relationship through a screen, right? Venus in Pisces. It's not a bad composite chart. I'm a little iffy about the moon Pluto in opposition to Jupiter, and I wonder if that's going to materialize as like issues revolving around not just cultural differences, but actual religious differences, and how either women in the family get involved in that, or, you know, if somebody's comes from a background of just a really rigid, particular religious or spiritual belief system, or if they come from a very kind of serious line of just having very a lot of cultural differences. A lot of, I think, moms or sisters or women, you know, moon people who can be very, very, very emotionally involved in kind of getting in each other's ears when it comes to like relationship stuff. So I'd be interested to see what happens when Saturn fully moves into your 7th house. Certainly like Mars and Venus are eventually going to move into your 7th house, and the sun will be there in the new year in Aquarius season. And there's also going to be gangbusters of planets conjunct your guys' composite Venus. So if you get the opportunity to see each other or be around each other, I would like to see how that kind of pans out in this next year. And I think when Jupiter conjuncture Venus, you can see what the future may hold. So that'll be an important time to watch also when Jupiter gets into the late degrees of Pisces. Composite charts with Moon conjunct Pluto, I got to tell you, they're not easy. And there is this sense of like fearing whether or not somebody's actually really going to move or make the change or make the space in their home. And it can represent intense emotions and kind of like emotional mind games. So you want to kind of stay away from that or anything that would make each other jealous. That's just the one bit of advice I would give you. So hopefully that's helpful. You'll have to let me know what happens with y'all next year, because I have a feeling you're definitely going to see each other. It's just a matter of timing and when you guys come together. Okay. Hopefully that's helpful. All right. So Pato asks, what are some major differences between synastry and composite? Synastry is just more how the planets are interacting with each other. So it's more like if you were to put two people in a room, how do they get on? Are they attracted to each other? How do they communicate? Do they see each other? That's more synastry. It's how the planets are aspecting each other. The composite, and I work with midpoints for this. Midpoints or Davidson, but for these sessions I do midpoints. That's going to give me the midpoint between both charts, and it creates a relationship chart of like what the relationship could be, if that makes any sense. So usually when I do like a relationship reading, or if I do like a synastry reading, somebody will come in and say, okay, I want to spend an hour looking at, you know, this compatibility. I'll look at the synastry, and then I'll look at the midpoint, and then I look at the Davidson. The midpoint and the Davidson are pretty equally accurate. Just timing wise, I have actually found, at least in my life, that the Davidson charts for transits tend to be very, 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 very accurate, like big time when you're looking at it in a relationship chart. So those of you guys who are on astro.com or anything like that, and you're looking and learning more about like synastry and composite charts, definitely take a look at Davidson charts, because they're like scary accurate. Okay. So let's get into the other question that I have in waiting from Sang. So give me a second. I'm going to plug this in. And let's see. We've got you here, April 12th, 1975. And that was at 10:18 a.m. Let's see if this picks this up. Seems like you knew that it wasn't going to pick this up because you gave me a couple different options. Closest city is VNT. Okay, let's try this. Laos. Okay, yeah, it ended up being the closest city. I wish I could pronounce that, but I know I'm going to botch it, so I'm not even going to attempt to do that. All right, so let's go ahead and pull this up. And you said that you're a Cancer rising, Aries sun and moon. So let me know if you're here. Oh, I see you, SR. You're welcome, Pedo. Okay, so 0 degrees Cancer rising, huh? It's a big one. So let's look at your question. Just following up on my previous awesome tarot readings, what you're coming up with in regards to career and money. I'm feeling in a bit of a lull. I need a pick-me-up. All right, I got you. So career and money is always going to be stuff relating to your 10th house and your 2nd house. Being that the moon rules your 2nd house, obviously like your financial sense of self seems to be something that's really important. And it's almost like whenever you have really challenging transits to your moon, which you're in the middle of, I'll talk about that in a second, it brings about a sense of like, what's my self-worth? How do I feel about my financial situation? Your mood very much affects your money. I don't know if you know that. I'm a Placidus reader. I don't read whole sign. So you got a couple things going on here right now that I feel like is the reason for the lull. Number one, holy crap, Batman, you got Pluto square your moon. So that in itself is a bit of a wild ride because squares are the energy of Mars. So it brings about like frustration, anger, moodiness. I'm also an Aries moon. Mine's 22 degrees. So I went through this about 2 years ago, a year and a half ago, just now coming out of it. And from my interpretation, Pluto moon squares also bring up deep subconscious emotional patterns that we're not aware of. So when we break it down and we look at what Pluto rules in your chart, it's your 6th house of work or productivity. And the moon rules your chart, obviously, and also your 2nd house. So there can be this sense of like, am I in work that feels fulfilling? Do I like what I'm doing? Also, you know, the combination of like the 2nd and the 6th house to me seems like, I would say really take a look at your diet and what you're eating. You already came out of Pluto square your sun. So that's more about how you express yourself, how you communicate. It's more physical changes. This change that's going on right now is deeply emotional and psychological because the square is also to your natal Chiron. So it's bringing up through the Venus retrograde. If I zoom in on this, that's going to happen here pretty soon. You've got Pluto and Venus also in a square to your moon. Not so great. Any of the cardinal moons, if you guys are in the chat, let us know how that's playing out for you. If you've got anything around maybe like 24 to 28 degrees, Libra, Aries, Capricorn, or Cancer, love to hear how that's affecting you. Having Venus square your moon can have you feeling like you don't have enough, or it can have you feel like you're not good enough, or that you're not feeling productive enough. On the flip side, I feel like that matched up with Pluto is making you acutely aware of the fears, 8th house, of like whether or not you're ever going to accumulate more. Now I'm all about like finding the silver lining and like making lemonade. And I always talk to my clients about while they're in the midst of a difficult square, where they can find release points or where there is support from the cosmos. And you definitely have a lot of that actually. In the midst of this intense Pluto square to your moon, oh, cool, you became a vegetarian. I was going to say, like, what you're eating and your daily routine are, like, key. Like, 2nd house is food, what you put in your mouth. 6th house is, like, fitness and what kind of work you're doing and how you're moving around, especially because your 6th house is ruled by Mars and or Pluto. And you've got Mars in the 9th house. So Jupiter coming into conjunction with your Mars, I think is going to be wonderful. It's going to give you the opportunity to either start some new kind of training, travel more, integrate more philosophy or spirituality into your daily routine. Notice that in your horoscope, you also have Mars in Pisces and it squares the nodes. So that represents a need to really integrate your Mars stuff. That's working with groups of people in other places or feeling like you can contribute to like a group cause. But just sticking right now with the Venus-Pluto square to your moon, yeah, that kind of pinches, but I mean, it is trining your Venus. So there's spiritual lessons about detoxing, purging, clearing out, letting go, whether this is like old work tendencies, your physical body, your finances. There's an interesting thing happening with that trine that's like desperately trying to like also build things up. And it's about bringing you into further spiritual development. Notice that Mars is really making an appearance right now because he's on your North Node. That's probably one part of what we're talking about Mars. So Mars is on your North Node and it squares Mars. That's frustrating. I would also say just watch when you're moving around the next couple days, especially with Mars conjunct the South Node and when Mars conjuncts Neptune. So Mars will be conjunct the South Node the 13th through the 15th, 16th. And when Mars conjuncts your natal Neptune, feeling kind of lower energy, Mars-Neptune conjunctions and squares can do that. So I also feel like it's more about just paying attention to what your body is telling you and getting into kind of a regular cycle or regular kind of schedule of how you're eating, how you're moving your body, how you're working. Once Mars starts to kind of come deeper into Sag and it starts trining, you know, all these planets you have in Aries, I feel like the new year is going to really give you more energy and more momentum. Hey, Catherine, it's nice to see you. I just sent you an email because I was like, I'm going to respond to you, but I'll respond to you. I'll respond to you on the live in just a second. Just send me your birth information. If you got my email, I just want your birth info and the person's name. But yeah, I kind of get the impression that once you come out of these squares, you're really going to start to see change happen. Now, you want to be listening to the astrological like insights, or if you have an astrologer that you listen to, if it's not just me, it's other people, when they're talking about like planets conjunct Pluto. So that's all going to pretty much kind of in a big way square your moon. So for example, we've got that happening the next couple days. Venus is going to be conjunct Pluto, square your moon. And I say this because it's your chart ruler. It'll go retrograde. Mercury was also in a square here around the 29th. The sun moves into a square with your moon on the 16th. And then I think when Venus and Mars, which rules your 5th house of joy and creativity and your 6th house of daily routine, when that all comes together with Pluto and then comes out of the square, some new cycle has begun and you've kind of cleared out old emotional toxic ways of being. Detoxes and purges are another thing I would say. So I'd love to hear that, you know, that you started becoming a vegetarian. I would say it's a little bit beyond that. It's just making sure that you're also moving your body around a little bit more. Money stuff will get better when you have a positive transit to your moon, right? So we see like Jupiter, you know, coming into Aries in this next year. Saturn's coming into a sextile. I would start identifying, finding work that brings purpose with Saturn and also Jupiter hanging out in your 9th. Maybe doing some continuing education, formal or informal. I would also say that this is going to be an opportunity for you to like travel more and to be experiencing other places more. And I think that's going to kind of open things up a little bit also with the sextile to your sun. To be honest with you, like you got a pretty decent year on tap once you've gotten into the spring of next year, because we're going to see Mars and Jupiter coming into your 10th house. We're also going to see Saturn in a very strong sextile to all of your 10th house next year. It's just all revolving around what you're willing to change. Now, once we get into 2023, you know, Jupiter will be, you know, pretty strongly hanging out in your 10th house. It'll conjunct your sun. And I feel like that's really going to help expand your professional stuff. But it's all built on the back of some of the things that you're willing to kind of let go of for the better part of the next 3 months. I would also look into your annual perfection year and see what annual perfection year you're in and look at that house and that time lord. And that's going to tell you a lot more about what's kind of happening. But right now you're just coming off of your, you know, your reverse nodal returns. That's a little bit of like when the past and the future meet in the present and you sort and you sift through where you have been, what you have done, what you have believed in. You kind of hold on to what you want, chuck the rest, and move forward. So it does require you, at least through the end of this year, to keep sorting and sifting. And it's a lot of asking yourself, do I believe in this? Do I believe in work that can be fulfilling but also adventurous? Do I believe in the vision that I'm building for the future of my finances or of my career? So you've got a lot of support going on. I think I would say that I personally have not gone through Pluto square my sun. I have gone through Pluto square my moon, so I can't vouch for the sun, but I can tell you that of all the Pluto transits I've had, of all the conjunctions, Pluto has touched almost all of my personal planets. Pluto square the moon was probably the most grueling experience for me, especially being an Aries moon, because you definitely butt heads with a lot of people. So watch for migraines, watch for stomach issues, watch for really purging and clearing. You know, maybe now you're eating vegetarian, but I look at your 8th house and all these planets going through there where you can feel kind of sludge or like lethargic. And it benefits you actually doing a detox, especially with Venus in your 8th house. I would say, okay, maybe you're eating vegetarian, but are you eating a lot of carbs? Are you eating a lot of sugar? Really look at your sugar intake. That's Venus. And whether or not there is some clearing that still needs to be done, and making space for work that feels more creative. Hopefully that's helpful for you. All right, so let me back over to, yeah, it's big. When you get to the other side of the Pluto square the moon, you're fine. You're so much better. But you bump heads with a lot of people. There's really no way around it. It's more happening because it's trying to get you to release old patterns and conditioning. And I say 8th house is fear. Fear of not having enough, right? But it really helps you tackle and assess also lots of things relating to intimacy and learning how to receive. Especially when you have Venus and Mars go through. Oh my goodness, you might have something come through that is almost like a total gift from the heavens. I mean, it might be somebody who goes, I'll help you build this. Here's the money, right? The North Node's going to be conjunct your Venus. So definitely creativity is really, really important. All right. So let's see who else we've got. We've got Stephanie Todman. And we've also got Catherine Marie. So let me get with Catherine, and then I will switch over to... excuse me, yeah, we'll do Catherine, and then I will switch over to the other reading. Where is it? I just lost it. Did you send the information to me in the chat, maybe? Stephanie, let me know. Maybe you did. All right, let me plug in Catherine Murray's info. So glad I caught you. 11/22/67. Happy belated. And that was at 22:40. So what is that? That's going to be what, 10:40? $9:40? 10:40, 9:40? 10:40. And that's let's see, United Kingdom. Okay, so let's pull your chart up. Catherine, there we go. Okay, so 11/22/67. Does this look right to you, Catherine? Just confirm, let me know. Leo rising, Sun in Scorpio, and that moon is in Leo. Paul, 9/17/66. I'm just going to read your question really quick. So in regards to your partner, first love, took me many years to get over this. Okay. So basically just getting over issues revolving around your best friend and what happened in regards to that. Should be, yeah, my body needs more attention. I'm trying. The pelvic is very damaged and the hip is loose. No worries. So here's the thing that I would say to you, Catherine, is that Venus is stopping short of her retrograde in your 6th. And she's going to hang out on your Mars for an extended period of time. So, Catherine, you're going to have 3 Venus returns. The first Venus return you had was right around here, and it was December 6th. So when we have anybody who's got Venus in Capricorn, if you have it anywhere between 26 and 11 degrees, you're going to have 3 Venus returns. That's kind of a big deal. That means that Venus is going through a process of needing to go back into the past and handle a situation or a past love or a past hurt. So Pluto very much is that. So the first Venus Mars conjunction you had, it's over your Mars, is really highlighting for you like your 9th house, which is the story in regards to love or love at a distance. It's really also highlighting your 4th house, which deals with the past. So Mars and Venus are star-crossed lovers. They love being together. So I think that with Mars and Venus coming together, it's really highlighting like where your heart needs healing, and where there's been some issue that's come up from the past that's hindering you from being able to open up to like love and relationships in the future, right? Mars is also exalted in Capricorn, and like for the last couple of years, you've been getting your butt kicked, having Pluto on your Mars, bringing about lots of pain and issues in regards to the past and feeling like you're trapped at home or you don't have any help at home. Equally, Saturn being there, which is like limiting things and making you very stiff. So like in a way, you're graduating from what has been some very challenging periods with Saturn and Pluto conjunct your Mars. So that in itself is really amazing. I feel intuitively that even if you were to look at this, it doesn't matter if you look at this as Placidus or whole sign, you would have your Capricorn Mars fall into the 6th house, which deals with men who you work with that are bossy or controlling, or in the Pluto case, obsessive, right? Pluto conjunct Mars. So in a way, I almost wonder if the Venus retrograde is like you going back over this and going, how do I release this from my bones? Capricorn is the bones. You may feel the aches and the pains literally deep in your bones, under your skin, right? And there's this sense of like wanting to kind of flush it out and release it. Mars is also heat. So I wonder if this is like heat issues or not being able to stay warm or you getting triggered by the cold. I feel like it may be beneficial for you to do like infrared saunas during these transits, because Venus and Pluto conjunct on your Mars wants to go deep and it wants to heal something. And I have found that with retrogrades, there's lots of karmic stuff that comes up. Like the 6th house can deal with obsessive men that you worked with, right? Who were really bossy, but it can also deal with endings of relationships that you don't ever really feel that you got closure from. So what a wonderful time then to have Venus and Pluto, which can represent the poison or the medicine. So in a way, it's like if you let this continue, if you let the old hurt or heartbreak or disappointment continue, it can literally continue to poison your body. On the flip side, if you go, okay, I'm going to do something, where I'm going to starve that off, or I'm going to cut these cords. Pluto can literally be like invisible cords or otherworldly obsessions and connections. I've had a lot of clients who have Mars or Venus or possibly even Mercury in Capricorn that's getting hit by this Pluto transit that have told me that it's been other people coming back seeking closure, and then when they go through the process of that, it's like their weird ailments sometimes kind of disappear. It's humid on the ocean. I sleep on an electric ball key light right now. Cool. That'll help you. Anything that relates to like warming the body up and like in warmer lights will be really, really helpful. But Venus is going to go back and forth over your Mars, which does tell me that there's heart healing. It does tell me that there's lots of opportunity for healing emotionally as well, because Mars rules your 4th. I'm more concerned that Mars has been conjunct your natal Neptune, which has you very much in your feelings, feeling totally lethargic, feeling zapped. And you have Mars that's getting ready to conjunct your Sun, which is your chart ruler. as well as the transiting south node. So I feel inclined to tell you, we're on the 11th here today, that, you know, literally today through, let's say, the better part of the 15th, there is a severing that's going on. Mars cuts. Do you have anything in the house that belongs to him? Is there anything in the house that he gave you? Is there anything like that? Because if there is anything in the house, I would get it out of the house. I would recycle it. I would donate it. I would get rid of it. It can be cards. It can be gifts. It can be jewelry. It can be pillows, like anything. It's like stuff that would either be in the bedroom or maybe the kitchen because it's the 4th house, or anything that reminds you of him even. Take it easy because you are very lethargic with this Mars aspect, and Mars even then is still going to square a little bit of your natal Jupiter. So I feel like rest and recuperation is so important until you get to closer to the 19th. So you got about another week here, and then you might start kind of feeling like things are shifting. I also would recommend looking at the South Node conjunct your Sun as a transit, because literally that represents removing a man from the house or from the past, or removing some energy of a past love, literally from, you know, your past. So something else that you could do that may be beneficial is, I'm thinking like, if you do everything in your power to work this out for the next couple of weeks, and you feel like you're not healing, you're still fixated on the past, you can't let him go, it's really hard for you to kind of like release that, I would say when Jupiter is coming into a trine, maybe with your Mercury, or when Jupiter is coming into a trine with your Sun Neptune next year, it would be really wonderful for you to consider hypnotism. In like really clearing out, because that's a water house that's having a conversation with an air house. So it's like literally talking to somebody about like, here are my feelings and my fears, and like I want to clear it out. The South Node transiting your Sun makes me feel like, you know, if it's not going to be a man that you're clearing from your past, it's like somebody in your apartment complex leaves, a family member who might be a male family member may transition. That's a really serious transit because it's in your 4th house. And also because it's your chart ruler. What date should I speak to him, before or after Christmas? Let me put in his birthday really quick, because you sent that to me. 9/17/66. So he has Neptune in opposition to his Sun right now. I want to pay him back some of the money I made after tax. I mean, here's the thing. You know, his Sun Uranus opposes your Chiron. I feel like an actual severing going into this next year is important, because it's going to give you the opportunity to distance yourself from him when he's not going to be very honest or forthcoming or clear when it comes to relationships anyway. I also feel like he's going to start a new chapter in relationships next year, because Jupiter is going to oppose all of his planets. I left before the sale of the company. He put me under duress again for 3 months and wouldn't let me leave. He stole my shares. Yeah, I mean, that's very South Node Neptune. Let me look at the... Well, conflict is going to be more Saturn Uranus. If you absolutely feel like you need to do it now, you can, but I feel inclined to tell you, because there is going to be that Venus that's going to go over your Mars several times, I would much rather wait until, I mean, you're going to want to do it around Christmas because it's Saturn Uranus square. That's why you're wanting to do it. You're wanting to sever it. If you feel like you need to do that around Christmas, by all means do that. But I don't really feel like this is going to be the end of it. Okay? For Leo risings, you still got Sun and Saturn that are going to meet in the 7th. You're still going to have a situation where Mercury is going to go retrograde. You may try to sever this with him, but you may still hear something in February or March of next year. But it's more the process of like really letting him go. Like if you want to pay him back and call it quits and be done, do so. But next year you're going to see that he is, I don't like using the term slimier, but there is going to be some slimier things happening because Neptune and Jupiter will oppose his Sun Uranus, and he's going to have a lot of issues with relationships, especially business partnerships. And he's getting ready to have the South Node return, and Uranus opposes Neptune. The one thing I will tell you is if he continues this behavior, he is going to get himself in some hot water. Neptune is hovering around his Saturn. So if he does screw somebody else over again, financially or professionally, you're going to see something manifest where it's like somebody is going to end up filing a claim. They are going to try to take him to court. They are going to try to claim that he did something that's illegal or criminal. Like that will happen with Neptune on his Saturn in opposition to his Sun. He will be held accountable for something. But also like his health isn't really that great. You know, he's got Pluto in opposition to his Jupiter. He's got Neptune in opposition to his Sun. He had a wife and a new baby, professing love. A board member said to me he would never let you have a relationship. He trapped and betrayed me. Yeah, I mean, honestly, I wouldn't walk away from this person. I would run. And I'm not judging them based off their astrology. I can just see that there's not a lot of clarity, and inevitably the relationship that he's in, you're going to start seeing the breakdown of that next year, probably with his second Saturn's return, because it's going to involve Saturn and Neptune. It'll be the dissolve of that relationship. But in a way, this is like somebody who's like living a double life, right? So here's the positive side. The positive side is that part of this Venus retrograde over your Mars is just trying to be like, I just want to give you the money back, right, Venus, and I want to be done with it. I would not engage with him when there is potential that he is going to try to engage with you next year. And yeah, your energy levels just really need to be monitored. Like, I know you really want to like cut him off, but I feel like doing that around Christmas or between Christmas and New Year's, all the best, you know, right when Saturn squares off with Uranus, and you're going to see something in your 10th house squaring off with your 7th house. It's like going, I don't want a relationship. I don't want to work with you. We're done. So it'll go a little bit smoother, because if this gets drug out till next year, when you have Saturn exactly on your descendant squaring the nodes, and if it's left open, it can get messy and somebody can try to be friends. And it's just like, I would say, no, don't do that. Hopefully you feel better. And I would say, please go and do some research into the South Node transiting your Sun. I would also say that it's really important for you to wait for your Mars return also. So your Mars return is going to bring you a little bit of like a boost in power, because you have Mars in an exalted sign. So that will happen here. With the moon. So energy levels are coming back right around the end of February. Do it sometime between Christmas and New Year's. Yeah. Do it between Christmas and New Year's. That would be the best time to do it. Otherwise, you can do it during the Mercury retrograde at the end of January 2022, but it's going to be harder to do it. It's going to be between the 25th and the 31st of December. If you can't do it then you want to do it when Saturn and the Sun come together and they square Mercury, depending on where the moon is. Then you could do it around February. Yeah, so between December 27th and 31st is fine. Otherwise, I think another breaking point is going to be right around February 6th and 7th, 2022. And that's going to activate the eclipse point. So you may still hear from him and kind of cut him off then. That's the feeling that I'm getting. But it doesn't really kind of clear out until you get to the second half of February. And it's definitely feeling that loss. The South Node on your Sun is like feeling releasing, letting him go. Hopefully that's helpful. You'll have to let me know. So let me see who else I've got here in my queue. Probably going to call last call on the reading. So if you guys have, you want to get your reading purchases in, go ahead and get them in. Otherwise, I will be back next week. Looking at my schedule, it's probably going to be Friday next week, not Saturday. So just a heads up. I'll try to update that earlier in the week for you guys. Got a question that came in from Amber Welch. I don't see a memo here. Hey, Ambi. You're welcome, Catherine. It was nice getting a chance to chat with you. Ambi, I need to know your birthday information. So the birthday, year, and time. And I also need to know the other person's. Once I have that, I'll be able to pull up your info and take a look at what questions you have. Let me know if you have a question about Synastry or composite. Those of you guys who are getting readings, when you do make the purchase in PayPal, there's a memo, so you can put that stuff in there. So once I get that, we can go ahead and get started. $225.82. What city? That's fine, no worries. 12:50 p.m. Because you don't know the time, I'm just going to look at the Synastry, Amber, okay? Just a heads up, and just see how you guys relate to each other. I just need to know what city you were born in. Thank you. Okay, so let's look at Amber's chart with this other person. Amber, let me know what questions you have in regards to this other person while I put in their info. 6173. Okay. That's cool. I'm going to use her, I'm just going to use her planets in the outside. So if you're not familiar with this, the inside is your chart. So the Cancer rising, the Sun in Pisces in the 9th, all of the inside is yours. And like my eyes get really big, girl, because I hope you've been listening to some of the stuff I've been saying. You have a very complex chart, so before I even get into what's going on with this other person, I'm more focused on you and not the other person. I know that's not what you want to hear, but I'm going to tell you anyway. I think this week I've probably seen a dozen people that are Cancer risings, Venus in Capricorn, and Moon in Aries. A lot of these people have been born in 1982 and 1983. You're getting your ass kicked. I'm not going to candy coat it. And this is because you have Pluto on your natal Venus right now. And it's in a square to your natal Pluto and Saturn. So off the bat, it does not matter who you would have brought into your life. It does not matter. The experience that you're having, if you've listened to some of my other videos, I was talking a lot about this in Libra season, where the writing was on the wall when we had the Mercury retrograde in Libra in September and October, where there was issues for Cancer risings in their relationships. Now, when I look at your chart, the 4th through the 9th house all deals with other people. So in that sense, it's really talking a lot about a lot of the issues that are coming up here are more so relating to potential partners, whether it's girlfriends, boyfriends, husbands, wives, spouses, it doesn't matter. So you don't just have Pluto conjunct your natal Venus, which is really difficult, but you have Pluto square Saturn, Pluto square Pluto, right? So when you go through your Pluto square Pluto and you come up on 40, Pluto square Pluto transit basically says You need to think about what's toxic, what's not working, what you don't want to bring with you into the next umpteen years, and what needs to be cleared out. So just Pluto in the 7th house of relationships squaring Pluto in the 4th/5th house can manifest as like breakups, issues with who you're living with, trying to move in with somebody, going back and forth. These squares do produce grit. You were born with these squares. You were born with Venus square Pluto. So you like a good fixer-up project. You love somebody who could potentially really break your heart and be a little reckless. Like, there is a sense of you being attracted to something that is complex and potentially painful. So, okay, you already went through the breakup. Your Venus is at a natal 27 degrees. That's a Gemini degree. So there's no doubt you got a thing for Geminis. Well, look at the outer part of this chart. Sun, Saturn, Venus, Moon, Mercury. This girl, this woman, has all these planets in Gemini, which are mutable, they're changeable. So one of the biggest themes that I see when somebody comes to me with a transit that you're having, like Pluto on a 27, is does this person want more freedom? Do they want to be able to experience other partners? Do they want to have an open relationship? Do they want to have sex with other people? Was there anything like this that came up? Do they want options? Do they want other people? Are there other people hovering around? Is she having issues being honest about what she wants or who she is in love with? Has any of that happened? You'll make it through the end of the year. I mean, a Pluto-Venus transit will rip your fucking heart out, but, you know, but you'll get through it. I mean, there's a great amount of empowerment that's going to come from this transit. And I think that's the big thing that I would say to you is part of what I see your soul chose in this lifetime, because you have both Saturn and Pluto square your nodes, and because you have South Node Venus, is that you're coming into an incarnation. Yeah, she cheated on you. I'm sorry. Part of me feels inclined to tell you there ain't no locking down a Gemini like that. Especially because she's got Venus Saturn, so she likes options. Even though she can't commit, she likes options. And 2, she's got a bunch of eclipses that's hammered her, and Neptune is in a square, so she's kind of deep into having to learn about honesty and what she wants for the better part of the next year or two. But your soul chose to come into this lifetime with, you know, Pluto square the nodes and Venus on the South Node, where you're hashing out old karmic relationship shit with people from past lives. You come in and you get into relationships with people who have a whole lot of family or karmic ancestral baggage, where they have repeatedly had issues either with infidelity, their families, commitment, divorce, right? Mars, Saturn, and Pluto in that square. And this is for anybody who's born into 82, maybe even into 83. If you've got stelliums of planets in Libra and you're getting really hit with the Pluto square, it's where you're learning whether or not relationships are for you. I look at her chart and I go, this is a big red flag relationship. And you love who you love, but it's like, man, you got her Sun, Saturn, Venus, Moon, all in your 12th house. You know what your 12th house is? It's your blind spot. It's like backing up out of a garage and not looking in your mirror, and you just take out the whole side of your car and you don't know how you did it, right? It's kind of like that. So things come out of left field when you've got people who have all of those planets in your 12th house that you never saw coming. However, it's also hard to resist them because you can be very self-sacrificial towards them. There was a really deep spiritual kind of psychic connection. And there's a lot of things that just being honest with you, having seen a lot of these charts, you probably only heard half of the shit she did, to be honest with you. Because it's not just the Pluto square, it's also all of the planets in the 12th house that are in conjunct or in quincunx your Venus. So you only heard part of it. I hope you put your big girl pants on, because the next 3 months are going to be kind of wild. When Pluto and Venus and Mars all come together and march on your Venus, that may be the definitive ending where you're like, no, I'm done, and there's no coming back from this. And I feel like a good Pluto transit is always so wonderful to definitely get into some kind of therapeutic assistance, right? So Pluto is therapy, it's psychological stuff. So whether you want to talk to a therapist about now sex and intimacy issues that you're dealing with as a result of that, and feeling like energetically you don't know how to open up and or trust again. But also it's like a huge process of detoxing and purifying your body, because to me it seems like maybe in the back of your mind you were kind of paranoid and you had a feeling that this was going on, but you couldn't quite put your finger on it, and maybe you didn't have proof. I feel like you've absorbed a lot of the toxicity from her being sexually active with other people. Very Pluto Venus, right? Yeah, I wouldn't touch this one with a 10-foot pole. I hate to say that, but this is like a recipe for disaster. But when Pluto comes into a conjunction with Venus, ultimately, especially for a Cancer rising, because Libra traditionally rules your 4th house, it really wakes you up and teaches you how to rely more on your intuition and be extremely selective with who you let into your home. Look at your 4th house. You got Saturn there. Were you guys living together? Or was it a situation where there was a lot of back and forth and trying to figure out how to merge and live together? Because I feel like you might have gotten saved. At the very least, if you were living together, then it was like helping you immediately snap out of that and like, you know, kick that to the curb. Yeah, I would just say, like, look, the next 3 months are real, because Venus is going to go retrograde conjunct Pluto, and it's going to touch your Venus a couple times. And, you know, I would just say be aware that until Pluto gets further away from your Venus, it'll get better. It'll get much better for relationships. But I don't think this is over with, because Venus is going to go and it's going to conjunct your South Node, and it's going to bring her back. For a Gemini, this is her 8th house. So it's about secrets being exposed, how she responds to the fact that she feels like now she doesn't have her fallback person. I mean, she may act total wackadoodle. And every time Venus is or Mercury is around 21 degrees, you may hear from her. The next 3 months is more about clearing up the past. So before you can fully move forward. So I would say just make sure you have something on back burner. You know, if you just got out of therapy and you're feeling good, I would say if you come up in a couple weeks and you feel like you need to recheck in, you may be better taking a step back in March, or at least just knowing that you can kind of, you know, you can go back if you need to. No. You can have a healthy relationship. Healthy relationships are going to happen when you have Saturn trine Saturn. That's next year. And when Saturn conjuncts your sun, you're going to meet somebody else. You're going to meet somebody either while you're traveling, or you're going to meet somebody online, or while they're in town. There isn't going to be an issue with you meeting another person. The issue is if there's been resistance in cutting off toxic relationships for the last year and a half, now it's like Pluto's going to say, well, we're going to give you some of the worst, like gnarly, most fucked up stuff that there's no going back from, right? Which is infidelity, Pluto. But also I would say watch out, because you're probably going to hear either more from this person or people who this person was affiliated with, which is why you still need some kind of emotional support in the process of this. You know, you can do that. When Saturn comes into a trine with your Mars and Saturn comes into a trine with your Saturn, you'll be fine. All it takes is one really strong Saturn transit for you to go into a positive relationship. Look for that happening next year. It's very likely that's going to happen. And it's very rare that I see Pluto-Venus transits, at least in an angular house. I know this isn't whole sign, this is Placidus, but if you're a Cancer rising, Venus is still kind of hovering in your 7th. So probably seen a dozen of these this week, and it's all the same thing. It's infidelity, breaking up, divorce, separations. So keep that therapist still on speed dial, at least through March. Stay the course. Choose 90 days of just a complete and total like sexual detox from people. And I feel like you're going to be feeling a whole lot better. And I have Venus in Capricorn too. When Pluto transited my Venus, it's like 8 years ago. When that happened, it was like a soul crushing year. And that's when I got really into evolutionary astrology. And I started learning about the Pluto book. So you may, if you're interested in astrology, it might be something you want to look at. Jeffrey Wolf Green talks a lot about Pluto. And he also writes extensively about Pluto conjunctions, both natally, but also in transits and what that brings about. And it's truth. Pluto is truth. So the truth becomes unveiled, and you see the truth in a situation in regards to a relationship and the person's true colors, because it's actually saving you. So hopefully that's helpful and gives you a little bit of peace. Moving on with that, we did last call. Just make sure, I think somebody might have popped in. Let's take a look here. From somebody who got to the other side of a Pluto-Venus transit, I could tell you it gets much better. once you get that person out of the way. That's very important. Oh, I got a payment from Yes. I'm going to assume that's butterflies. Let me plug this info in live readings. Give me just a second. I'll get this up. $816.86. 3:41 p.m. And that's Toledo, Ohio. Okay, best time to try pregnancy injections again. This will be our last year trying. Any health issues that may be stopping this? I can give you the best time. Let me see, give me 1 second here. Oh, don't worry, I did not miss you. I just saw that. I did not miss you, don't worry. Thanks for waiting. Sorry, guys. Yes, let me just tell you really quick, okay? The thing about this is, because I've done a lot of this for clients, you want to look at the lunar returns also. So I just want to preface it with that. I'm more than happy to answer the question, but when I do pregnancy or anything in relation to that, I look at the progress chart, I look at the lunar returns and those cycles, and I really want to make sure that I'm giving them the most accurate information. So just looking at the transit is sometimes not the only answer, okay? So I'm happy to give you that response, but following it up with it's not going to be complete, basically. Being that you have Jupiter going into Aries, you know, in this next year, it's going to start the process of getting you ready for pregnancy, but it's not anything that you want to touch right now with Venus going retrograde and in a square to your nodes. Like, in a way, this is very off limits really until the spring. So you want to see a positive conjunction involving your 5th house lord, and you want to see it in a feminine sign. Because it's going to be more so receptive. So I'm thinking like maybe Mars conjunct Jupiter. And obviously you're going to do fertility treatments. So Sun Uranus isn't necessarily a bad move either. So maybe getting Venus into Aries and getting Mars conjunct Jupiter. Where's the moon this day? Obviously, I know a lot of it's also going to depend on your fertility cycle, but moon opposed Venus isn't a bad move. You could do something like that, but that's taking you closer to like the 12th of May. Moon in opposition to Venus, Mars conjunct Jupiter, that's activating your 5th house. So you're really looking at a better time to be doing that in May. Another option is you could do something like just after a new moon in your 5th house, which will be conjunct Uranus. Venus is the ruler and Venus is conjunct Jupiter. So the end of April, I would say not on the 30th, but you know, really, I feel like the first 2 weeks of May are probably going to be better. Something that you also may want to look at is like your progress chart. Another option is you can do something like when Jupiter's in Aries conjunct Mars here right around May 28th. So you may also, if you're trying to get pregnant at the beginning of May, you may find out you're pregnant and the Mars-Jupiter conjunction is like telling your family, we're pregnant, right? Something like that might happen. A lot of astrologers would say, wait until either your 5th house Lord is conjunct the North Node, maybe with the moon right here, June 21st, or when maybe Mars conjuncts the point of fortune with a trine from the moon, July 1st, right? So, and that's for just a heads up for all like mid-range, late Scorpio risings going into Sag risings. A lot of people are going to have kids and get pregnant next year at those dates, especially Mars and Jupiter coming together, because Jupiter deals with fertility sometimes. It deals with, you know, receptivity. Jupiter actually rules sperm. So, you know, Jupiter and Mars coming together, your Jupiter, it can be Mars, that you're receiving that and that it's sticking, right? So I would try to look for right around the Mars-Jupiter conjunction, and you want to see a trine from the sun, excuse me, a trine from the moon. So looking at maybe when the moon goes into Aries around June 3rd. I know I'm throwing a lot of dates at you, but those are dates that in theory, according to the transits, would stick, especially because they're all trining Saturn and Uranus in your 1st house. The 2nd child always deals with the 7th house, and that's Mercury or Gemini. So the other thing is that if you can't get anything to stick then, you can wait until Mars gets into Gemini here and is maybe sextiling Jupiter. So then September would be another time to try. Mars is then building into a square with Neptune. So it's like, it's going to be harder, I think, for pregnancy or navigating pregnancy, or because of pregnancy, it's like, oh my gosh, now we have to move. I don't know if that's a situation in your life, but certainly a Mars retrograde in your 7th house is going to activate with the squares to Neptune that you need a bigger space. So it also say, is there some kind of planning that needs to be done with having another kid before you get pregnant? You know, just keep that in mind, because for a lot of people who are going to have Mars and Gemini next year, square Neptune along their 4th house cusp is going to be like, you're pregnant, you're not going to feel like, you know, carrying boxes and doing things like that. Also be careful, Mars and Gemini can materialize also as twins, doubles too. So if you're doing fertility treatments, you know, ask all the questions if it is possible that there could be more than one, or if you are doing like in vitro and stuff like that, be mindful that there can be more than one, especially with Mars opposed Uranus square Neptune. If you are pregnant next year, you're going to be exhausted, very tired. You may find that you have issues with your feet. You need to be off your feet more. You need to be resting more, and you're going to need help from the family. If you do want to book a session with me, I'm happy to do that. So it would probably be, we could do that either in a half an hour or an hour. I would just take your chart and I would go month by month, and I would look at the lunar returns and also look at your progress chart. I think I've predicted like almost like 60 kids this year. It's been somewhere around like 56, 57 babies. The year's not over yet. So I had like another 2 this week. So I'm really good with like predicting like pregnancy and children. So check out my website if that's something that you're interested in. I'm happy to help you with that. Add another baby to my list. Hopefully that materializes for you, especially with eclipses in your 5th house. It's a good omen of pregnancy. All right, Miss Todman, thank you for waiting. Appreciate. I did not skip you, I promise. Let's get your chart in here. All right, June 30th, 83. And that's at 12:57 p.m. And I need the city from you. Interested in knowing when my next relationship will come around. If you can let me know your city, that would be helpful. You're welcome. Good luck. Brooklyn. Thank you. Okay, so we got you here, June 30th, 83, 12:57 p.m. Libra rising. So relationships for you are going to be 7th house or Mars. So you've got Jupiter coming into a trine with your Mars. Do you still live in Brooklyn? Where do you live? You got a Venus retrograde in your 4th. So are you digging where you're living? Are you thinking about moving back somewhere? Do you want to change apartments or homes? Do you think about buying something? What's going on in your life? Venus retrograde's a big one here because it's your chart ruler. And as it retrogrades here pretty soon, it can bring love from the past. I would say don't go there. You want to look for maybe when there is a conjunction with Mars on your south node. I think you might get a phone call or a text or somebody from the past who reaches out right around mid-January. I would say no. You're in LA now. Are you liking where you're living? Are you thinking about moving? Let me know. Venus coming into conjunction with Mars seems to insinuate that a new love connection can happen right around early February. Okay, yeah, change apartments. Change apartments. Because Venus conjunct Pluto is saying like there's either like crime in your neighborhood, or you found mold in the bathroom, or you hate your landlord. Like there's something toxic happening in the home right now that you're not thrilled about, or within the neighborhood or the space. Definitely consider moving, because to me it seems like the idea of a move also will correspond with like meeting somebody new. So obviously, like, you know, you could meet somebody in any part of town, but something about changing that up is getting triggered in a very big way, and that it makes it more likely for you to meet someone. So all past loves have been blocked. Okay, well, let's keep it that way. You'd be surprised how many people can reach out to you with this retrograde. I would say maybe Mars opposed Mars can bring something as well, but this is likely to be somebody at a distance. So from January 25th through right around, let's say, Valentine's Day, that can be a really great time to be meeting somebody. Yeah, I would say switch neighborhoods, because I'm not saying that's going to have a huge shift in your love life, but just the energy of being willing and open to move, that's part of what the transit's trying to get you to do. So right around the end of January through mid-February, somebody can come in. And then also, you know, you're going to have the Sun trine Mars. The problem is you're going to keep meeting people who are going to be in other areas. So if you're in LA, by LA standards, it's like if you're living in, like, let's say downtown, and there's somebody who's on the west side. I know many people in LA are like, oh, hell no. But I mean, these are the kinds of things that can happen over the next couple of weeks, that you meet people on completely different sides of town, or people who even live even further away. Something else you're going to see that's going to happen is when Mars and Venus come together. It's very romantic and very passionate as of early March. And it's also like preparing the home. So it's this feeling of like, if you do decide to move, you perfect your home, you get newer stuff, newer curtains. There might be things that you put some art up on the wall, whatever. But really the Venus retrograde for Libra risings is like letting go of the past. So if you're feeling blocked in love, it's like, if you've already blocked everybody else and you're done with them and you're like, okay, I'm good. The question is even though they're gone, have you emotionally processed the past? You're one of those people from 82, 83 who's in the midst of their their Venus-Pluto square. So the next couple days is an interesting time to pay attention, because Venus, your chart ruler, is in a square with Pluto, which means you may have given up the past, but that doesn't mean other people have. The other way this can materialize is like being in a situation where there's some drama going on with a family. I know you didn't ask about that, but just a heads up, that can happen very much over the next month or two. So the last, week or so of Venus kind of coming up on Pluto and squaring your natal Pluto, it's like, to be honest with you, relationships are really hard for people born in 1983. And the reason being is because you guys have that Pluto-Saturn conjunction exact. So you're not just dealing with Pluto square your Pluto, you're also dealing with Pluto square Saturn, which means somebody else is looking for your ass, but they live somewhere else. So this feeling of just intuitive knowing that's like, I'm over the neighborhood, I don't want to be here in this particular part of town anymore, maybe I should see what else is out there. Follow that, because the likelihood is at least in my experience, when I went through some similar squares, it was like right when I was like, okay, I'll move, like the relationship stuff changed. And I didn't even have to move. So it's more about changing the mindset. Yeah, family drama. Well, you haven't even seen anything yet, as you have with the Venus-Pluto squares. Watch what happens over the next 3 months in regards to family. What's really happening is that it's like a complete clearing out of past emotions, old past emotional patterns in relationships, old family drama, until you break through right around March and new love can begin. And this will be, mid-February, I would say. You've also got Jupiter getting ready to go into your 7th house, which is going to be really sweet. That can be definitely a husband transit. So I would say mid-February through March. Then again, May through about July. Usually Jupiter in the 7th house in a woman's chart is a really great indication that, there's a new partner coming in. But Jupiter rules your 3rd house. So it means you talk to him on a phone a lot. You got to drive back and forth to see him a lot. He's a little bit of a distance. I would say, do not let distance affect relationships. Don't allow yourself to shut somebody down because they maybe live in Texas, or maybe they live in New York, or maybe you're talking to somebody who's telling you that they're trying to move out there. There's going to be some aspect of you meeting somebody who's going to live somewhere else, or they're thinking about relocating, right? The other thing is you got Saturn and you've got Jupiter that's going to be hanging out in your 5th house. So I don't know how you're feeling about children or about the prospects of having children. But these planets going into your 5th house are about your self-expression, what you fall in love with, what you create, or what you give birth to. So for some people, it's I birthed a book, I started my own business, I adopted a dog. But traditionally, the 5th house is children. So having Saturn and Mars and Venus all coming together in your 5th house can materialize as meeting the person who you're going to have a kid with, if you want that, or falling in love with somebody and that being the birth of the relationship. So for a Libra rising, I'm really excited to see how that materializes for you in April. There can be this really strong feeling of I just really want to have a child, or I really want to be able to build with somebody or start a business with somebody. These feelings are going to come up very strongly, especially because it's all going to be on your natal Ceres, which is about nurturing. And I can see in your astrology, because you have Ceres in opposition to Venus, that there's been this theme of love and loss in your life. You're with people, but then that eventually they part ways, or they abandon, or they go their own way. I don't know if that's something that you've experienced, but there's seasons of your love life, right? So what's going to happen with Saturn, which rules your house and home, coming into an opposition with Venus, is that you're going to approach relationships next year by being no, I want a friend, and focusing more on maintaining a friendship and kind of getting to trust them and feel that out first. Before you decide to really open up and go, okay, I'm more willing to be in a relationship and be official. Soon as planets are going into your 5th house, you start getting baby fever. So Saturn's going there, Mars is going to go there, Juno's going to go there, Venus is going to go there. This is a pretty sweet setup that you've got. February, March, April, May, June. But I think that once the 5th house starts having conversations with the 7th house, it's but I'm looking for somebody who I can do this with. So it's about really showing up and being authentic. Thank God Mars and Saturn are going to power up your Pluto-Saturn. So you're going to start to really kind of open up. But I don't really feel like you're playing games when it comes to matters of the heart. Having all those planets coming into your 5th house means that that person can be different, unconventional, or it starts as a friendship first. But I would say swing back around, come back to the channel. Let me know what happens. Give it at least, I would say, until about July. But it's either going to be that February going into March, or it's going to be that April going into May time period. Whenever planets are hovering in Aquarius or hovering in Aries, that's when you're going to see this stuff happen. Something else you could also look at is your solar return chart, just to kind of see what your Time Lord is for the year and how that's materializing. But even next year down the road, you got a Mars retrograde in your 9th. Which means you're going to be in a situation where you're going to have a partner who's trying to get you to move to them, or you're thinking about having them move to you. That'll be the second half of next year. So there's nothing wrong with going at this from a distance, going back and forth for a number of months before ultimately having more serious conversations about moving. The trines to Saturn will be okay, if I move, it's because we're getting married or we're having a kid, right? There's going to be conversations like that. So I would say search far and wide, be open to meeting people in all different areas. Because this is the chart that is going to bring in the relationship that it's seeking, but it needs to start more so with a friendship, and also being very authentic with what it is that you want. If it's just a relationship, if it's marriage, if it's kids, you need to start really talking about that next spring, so that way you can bring it into fruition. But your horoscope for marriage is pretty positive. I'm liking it. Let me know what happens. Hopefully that was helpful. Make sure I didn't miss anybody. Yeah, it looks like we got everyone. Otherwise, yeah, I'll be back next week. I think I'll be back on Friday, not Saturday. So usually I do Saturday, but I've got some stuff going on next week. So I'll be putting that in my channel here shortly. Tomorrow's Sunday. I'm going to start working on the astro weather videos for you guys. I want to talk about Mars going into Sagittarius because that's going to happen soon. Mars in the South Node. And we've got a full moon in Gemini coming. It's hard to believe it's the end of December already. It's nuts. Well, mid-December, but we're getting there. And I'm going to be putting out a new podcast tomorrow with the Peace Dealer. If you guys check out my Midheaven podcast, sorry, Monday, excuse me, it'll come out Monday. Unless you're a subscriber, then you already got it. But Monday, it's going to all be about, basically red flags in the birth chart, what to be aware of. We're also going to do some stuff on Capricorn season coming up later this month. If you haven't seen my podcast, check it out. It's a good time. I'm sure I have it somewhere on my channel. And if you want to book a reading with me, I've got some openings in January. So check out my website at beyondtheveiltarot.com if you want to get on my schedule and you'd like to get a reading with me. If you like my style, it's a combination of predictive astrology methods with tarot and also what I see clairvoyantly. New Year's Day on the 1st, I'm doing a live stream. It's on my channel. Don't forget to put it in your calendar, save it. I'm going to be doing a donation-based live stream talking about all the most important transits of 2022 and some more insight into how it's going to affect each and every one of the 12 signs. So I hope you can join me. Thank you guys for your donations. I appreciate it. It was great being here and being able to help you. Don't forget to like, comment, and also subscribe so you are aware of when I'm going live. I will see all of you guys very soon. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. Take care.